Namaskar, welcome back to the channel. Today we turn our attention to a story that is casting a long and dark shadow not just over the Middle East, but across the entire world. The escalating conflict between Israel and Iran has reached a perilous new chapter in 2025. This is not a simple border dispute. It is a complex web of historical grievances, political ambitions, and proxy warfare that has finally boiled over into direct confrontation. For decades, these two nations have engaged in a shadow war, fighting through other groups and in other countries. But now, the shadows have receded, and the conflict is out in the open, threatening to pull the entire region into a devastating war. Understanding this requires us to first look at the map, to see where these powers sit, and the space that separates them. To truly grasp the situation, we must first locate our protagonists on the world stage. Israel, a small but technologically advanced nation, is situated on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea. It is surrounded by neighbors with whom it has had a long and often troubled history. Far to its east, separated by countries like Jordan and Iraq, lies the Islamic Republic of Iran, a vast and powerful nation with significant influence across the region. This geographical distance has for years been a buffer. It meant that any direct conflict would be a complex logistical challenge. However, modern warfare, with its long-range missiles and sophisticated drones, has rendered this distance almost meaningless, turning a regional rivalry into a direct and imminent threat. The roots of this animosity are deep and tangled. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran under the Shah and Israel maintained quiet, functional relations. But the revolution changed everything. The new leadership in Tehran adopted a staunchly anti-Israel ideology, viewing it as an illegitimate state and an outpost of Western influence in the region. Since then, Iran has supported groups hostile to Israel, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine. Israel, in turn, has viewed Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat and has been accused of carrying out covert operations, including assassinations of Iranian scientists and cyber attacks, to sabotage it. This long-simmering Cold War has now, in 2025, turned hot. The people of both nations and indeed the entire world are now caught in the crossfire of this geopolitical struggle. For the citizens of Israel, the threat of missile attacks is a constant source of anxiety, a fear punctuated by the wail of air raid sirens. For the people of Iran, the weight of international sanctions, combined with the fear of military strikes, has created a heavy burden. As journalists, it is our duty to look beyond the headlines and the political rhetoric, to understand the human cost of these decisions. The story is not just about missiles and military bases. It is about the millions of ordinary lives hanging in the balance, hoping for peace but preparing for the worst. So, what was the specific event that pushed this long-standing rivalry over the edge? The current crisis did not emerge from a vacuum. It is the culmination of a series of escalatory steps that began long before 2025. We must look back to early 2024, when tensions were already high following the Gaza conflict. A pivotal moment, according to many analysts, was the alleged Israeli airstrike on an Iranian consular building in Damascus, Syria, in April 2024. This attack killed several high-ranking Iranian military officials, including a senior commander of the Quds Force. For Iran, this was not just another covert strike. It was a direct attack on what it considered sovereign territory, a red line that demanded a public and forceful response. This act was seen in Tehran as a deliberate provocation, a challenge that could not be ignored without losing face both at home and among its regional allies. The world held its breath, and Iran's response came in the form of an unprecedented direct attack on Israel. On the night of April 13th to 14th, 2024, Iran launched over 300 drones and missiles toward Israeli territory. This was a significant moment in the history of this conflict. For the first time, Iran had attacked Israel directly from its own soil. While most of the projectiles were intercepted by Israel and its allies, the psychological barrier had been broken. The shadow war was over. A new, more dangerous era of direct confrontation had begun. Throughout the rest of 2024 and into early 2025, the situation remained on a knife's edge. A series of retaliatory strikes followed, Israel responded to the Iranian barrage with its own limited but symbolic strikes near a strategic airbase in Isfahan, Iran. This tit-for-tat exchange demonstrated that both sides had the capability and the will to strike each other directly. A tense quiet followed, but proxy attacks continued. Reports from late 2024 cited increased activity by Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, targeting US and Israeli interests. A headline from a December 2024 news report read, "Fears of wider conflict grow as proxy clashes intensify on Israel-Lebanon border." This set the stage for the major escalation we are witnessing today in June 2025. The final spark, according to reports from May 2025, was a sophisticated cyber attack that crippled significant parts of Iran's oil infrastructure, which Tehran publicly blamed on Israel. This was followed by a deadly drone attack on a sensitive military research facility deep inside Iran. In response, Iran declared that its strategic patience had ended. This led to the current wave of hostilities, which has included long-range missile strikes targeting military installations in both countries. The carefully constructed, albeit fragile, deterrence that had held for years finally shattered, plunging the region into the uncertainty and fear that defines the present moment. To understand the gravity of the current situation in mid-2025, it is crucial to examine the sequence of events that have led us here. The conflict is no longer confined to proxy battlefields like Syria or Lebanon. It is now a direct war of attrition fought across hundreds of kilometers. Following the major escalations of early 2025, Iran launched what it termed Operation True Promise 2, a far more ambitious assault than the one in 2024. News reports from May 28, 2025, described a multi-wave attack involving advanced ballistic missiles and a new generation of suicide drones aimed at overwhelming Israel's air defense systems. This time, some missiles reportedly slipped through the defensive shield, causing damage to military bases in the Negev desert. Israel's response was swift and severe. The Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, launched Operation Iron Fist, a series of targeted airstrikes against what it identified as key nodes of Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. On June 3, 2025, international news agencies ran headlines like "Massive Explosions, Rock Isfahan as Israel strikes key Iranian facilities." These strikes were not merely symbolic. They were designed to degrade Iran's offensive capabilities and send a clear message that any attack on Israeli soil would incur a devastating cost. The locations of these attacks are significant, targeting sites near Natanz and Isfahan, both central to Iran's nuclear program, raised international alarm about a potential nuclear dimension to the conflict. The human cost of this conflict is mounting. While both sides have focused on military targets, civilian casualties are an inevitable and tragic consequence. A report from a humanitarian organization dated June 15, 2025, estimated that thousands have been displaced near the targeted zones in both countries. The psychological toll is immense. In cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, life is punctuated by air raid sirens, forcing families into bomb shelters. In Iranian cities, the fear of sudden, destructive airstrikes is palpable. The conflict has also spilled over, with increased clashes between Israel and Hezbollah on the Lebanese border, turning northern Israel into a veritable war zone. We are also seeing a new front open in this war, the economic one. Maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil supplies, is under threat. Reports have emerged of attacks on commercial vessels linked to Israeli and Western interests, which Iran denies, but many attribute to its naval forces. This has caused global oil prices to spike, adding another layer of instability to the world economy. The conflict is no longer a distant affair. Its shockwaves are being felt in energy markets and diplomatic chambers around the globe, from New Delhi to Washington. The battlefield is expanding, and the stakes are getting higher with each passing day. As bombs fall and tensions rise, the world is not a silent spectator. The international community is deeply divided, and its reactions are shaping the trajectory of this conflict. The United States, Israel's staunchest ally, has been unequivocal in its support. President Biden's administration has provided significant military aid, including resupplying Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling air defense systems. A White House statement from June 5, 2025, affirmed Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian aggression. American naval assets have been moved into the eastern Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf, not just as a show of support for Israel, but also as a deterrent to prevent the conflict from spreading and to protect vital shipping lanes. On the other side of this diplomatic chessboard, Iran is not entirely isolated. Russia and China have called for de-escalation, but have also used the crisis to criticize what they call Western unilateralism. A spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry urged all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid a further deterioration of the situation. However, behind this diplomatic language, there is a clear strategic alignment. Russia has reportedly supplied Iran with advanced air defense technology in recent years, and both Moscow and Beijing see the conflict as an opportunity to challenge American influence in the Middle East. Their positions, while calling for peace, effectively provide diplomatic cover for Iran and complicate any unified international response through bodies like the United Nations Security Council. And where does India stand in all of this? New Delhi finds itself in a very delicate position. India maintains strong and growing strategic partnerships with both Israel and Iran. The relationship with Israel is deep, covering defense, technology, and agriculture. Simultaneously, Iran is historically significant for India, crucial for regional connectivity through projects like the Chabahar port, and an important source of energy. The Indian government has therefore adopted a cautious and balanced approach. The Ministry of External Affairs has issued statements calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities and a return to diplomacy, emphasizing its concern for the large Indian diaspora in the region and the stability of global energy supplies. India is walking a diplomatic tightrope, trying to maintain its friendships while advocating for peace. Global institutions, particularly the United Nations, appear largely paralyzed. The UN Security Council has held several emergency meetings, but deep divisions among its permanent members, namely the US, Russia, and China, have prevented any meaningful resolution from being passed. The veto power has been used to block substantive action, reducing the Council's role to one of a forum for public statements rather than a body for effective conflict resolution. This diplomatic stalemate is tragic because it leaves the people of the region at the mercy of military calculations. The world is watching, talking, and posturing, but on the ground, the logic of war continues to prevail over the hope for peace. As we stand in the middle of 2025, the most pressing question on everyone's mind is, what happens next? The future of the Israel-Iran conflict is shrouded in a fog of uncertainty, with several possible scenarios, each carrying profound implications for the region and the world. Military experts are closely analyzing the capabilities of both nations. Israel possesses a technologically superior air force and one of the world's most sophisticated multi-layered air defense systems, including the famous Iron Dome for short-range rockets, David's Sling for medium-range threats, and the Arrow system for ballistic missiles. This defensive shield is its greatest asset, allowing it to withstand attacks while planning its own offensive operations with precision. Iran, on the other hand, relies on a different strategy. Its strength lies in its vast arsenal of ballistic missiles and drones, its strategic depth, and its powerful network of proxy forces across the region, often referred to as the Axis of Resistance. While its air force is older, its missile program is advanced, and has demonstrated the ability to reach any part of Israel. Iran's military doctrine is based on asymmetric warfare, using its strengths to counter Israel's technological edge. The critical question experts are debating is whether Iran's offensive capabilities can overwhelm Israel's defenses in a sustained all-out war. The answer remains terrifyingly unclear. One potential path forward is a reluctant de-escalation brokered by international powers. Fearing a full-blown regional war that would devastate the global economy, countries like the US, along with European and key Arab states, may exert immense pressure on both sides to pull back from the brink. This would not be a peace treaty, but rather a fragile, unstated agreement to return to the shadow war status quo. It would mean an end to direct state-on-state attacks, but the underlying tensions would remain, simmering just below the surface, ready to erupt again at a later date. This seems to be the most hoped for, if not the most likely outcome, for a world weary of conflict. However, there is a darker, more catastrophic possibility, a full-scale regional war. If one side believes the other is about to cross a critical red line, such as a direct, successful strike on a nuclear facility or a high-casualty attack on a major city, it could trigger an all-out military confrontation. Such a war would inevitably draw in other actors. Hezbollah would likely launch its massive rocket arsenal at Israel from the north, while other Iranian proxies in Syria and Iraq would activate. The United States could be drawn in directly to defend Israel and its own regional interests. This is the nightmare scenario, one that would lead to unimaginable destruction, a massive refugee crisis, and a global economic shock. The choice between these paths is being made right now, in the war rooms and diplomatic offices of Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Washington. The final chapter of this conflict is yet to be written. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.